Okay, so we are here for another episode of the SOS Brigade's discussions. This time we are talking about Ressentiment,
Mhm.
a manga about virtual reality, let's say. The manga came out in 2003. Um, I just came across it randomly on Mal, but there were some connections to other stuff which I read, which came out when I did some research. For example, uh, this is the author of this manga is the one who drew the cover to Honda Toru's book, The Empower Toko. But we'll talk about those things later. So
Mhm.
um, I guess I'll just move on to the first slide if I can get it to work, because for some reason it's going 2 slides rather than one every time I click it. Um, okay, so what does the term ressentiment mean? It's a French term used by Nietzsche, which you have to pronounce it in French, which I can't. But yeah,
Ressentiment.
yeah, and yeah. And I guess the definition is something like envy against you know those who are doing better than you. Um, Something like that, and you can see that through all the characters in this many of the characters in this manga. Which genres do you think that apply to this manga, Fahrenheit?
Um, oh man, I mean, obviously it's kind of like science fiction, but it's also a comedy. So it's like a sci-fi comedy, romance. I guess it's describe it that way. It's also quite tragic, but I mean, comedies can be quite tragic, but it leans more on the comedy elements, I'd say. Of course, I mean, it is somewhat Shakespearean, because of what happens later on, and I think we'll get to it where like great tragedies do occur, but ultimately it is to serve a kind of comedy plot throughout. I mean, I don't think that's too controversial, right, to
Yeah,
say.
yeah.
Mhm.
I would also say that it's a seikaike, if you have heard that term. So uh,
Mhm.
it's a term which came out basically about works inspired by Evangelion, works which revolve around um, basically where the relationship between two characters is like the fate of the world depends on the relationship between two characters. Or in other words, the relationships can be more important, and the fate of the world is like saving humanity is at most a secondary issue. Um, when that
Yeah.
becomes a plot point later on in the story.
Mhm.
Um, so virtual reality. So it's about virtual reality, and virtual reality is referred to as the unreal, um, or sometimes as Noah's Ark, but you, usually it's just called the unreal.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. So
A bit like it was called The Wired in Lane.
yeah.
Yeah.
This came out in 2003, so after Lane,
Yeah.
I think. Yeah.
Yeah, about 2 years after, I think it would fit in some way on some similar themes, but Lane goes, for the philosophical approach, and here we are we're simply seeing losers basically trying to cope,
Yeah,
more or
yeah,
less.
yeah.
And this is how the plot develops,
And
which is obviously funnier, but
yeah, I think most of the comedy, a lot of the comedies, like comes from the panels which like show a contrast of how the characters look in the game. Yeah, basically in the virtual reality game as opposed to reality.
yeah.
Like for example, if you look at the second slide, I think, or the third, where
Yeah.
where it's like this character called um, Reinhard. Well, that's just his name in the game. His actual name is Echigo, and like he's giving this speech about how the protagonist has to face reality, that there is nothing for them but the unreal. But you know, um, in, in the game he's taller than, the heights are reversed, and so on. There's a lot of panels like that. I didn't include a lot of them in the presentation, but there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. So if I can get this presentation to work. Okay. So how does the VR work in Ressentiment? It basically works like in Ready Player One, but it's played for laughs, like because it's ridiculous, obviously. Um,
And it's not very. It's pretty ridiculous in Ready Player One too, but let's not go there.
yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
just sorry, just on this first point, I love how they made no attempt to kind of resolve how people walk about in the virtual world, right? Because if you walk in one direction in the Unreal, you're literally walking in the room. So there's lots of these gags throughout the manga,
Okay.
right, where people are like walking into things, walking off things, falling over, because the action you take in the Unreal is you literally have to perform in your like virtual outfit.
Yeah.
I thought, yeah. Whereas I mentioned this last time in like Ready Player One, they're like, oh, everyone's on treadmills. The reason why people don't walk into stuff is because they're on treadmills and they work together. But yeah, it's but yeah, sorry. We can continue.
yeah. People constantly walk into walls, fall off stairs, and just standard slapstick comedy stuff, I guess. So you can use your own picture or as your avatar, but not celebrities because of copyright. Yeah, I mean, there's I mean, even if they don't pay a lot of, like, even if they play off uh, you know, the physical part of VR for jokes, like it's not like there isn't any world building or any thought put into it. Um, yeah, like for example, I mean, it's also funny, I guess, that like you can use any picture, including your own picture, and then the protagonist, for example, he just gets a picture of himself back from high school, and then touches it up to make himself look a little bit more handsome. I guess the fact that he uses his own image points to the fact that, like, he's not as far gone as some of the other people
I
who, yeah,
suppose.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it is quite well thought out in a lot of places. The one I noticed is if you pay attention to the layout of Reinhardt's mansion and compare it to the layout of Echigo's room, well, Echigo has two couches, right? And
Mhm.
Reinhardt has two couches in his mansion, so Echigo can basically fully immerse himself because he's arranged this in his apartment, which I thought was a pretty nice attention to detail sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then you have Takaro actually forgetting. I think it was during the school chapters where where it kind of goes to a place I didn't expect it to go, but maybe I should have saw it coming. But he goes to school in the virtual world at some point, and he forgets that it's the virtual world, and he like almost like urinates on his own floor, right? Because he's like so immersed. So I mean,
yeah. He goes to a
uh,
toilet in the fake
yeah,
school, I think it
yeah,
was.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mhm.
there's so like a member of the faculty has to like remind him that he's you know is it this isn't reality. You might get carried away. But that's just how immersive the experience is. You know.
So there is one continuous world map which is divided into two parts. One is called Fantasia, and the other called Nostalgia. So
Yeah.
Fantasia, obviously, so basically the deeper you go, into Fantasia, the more fantasy-like it gets, and the more you go into nostalgia, the more it becomes like real life. Um,
Mm.
yeah, I'm not sure about
Yeah.
whether the sci-fi stuff is or if I don't think that they said anything, but I imagine it's somewhere in the fantasy, along with the fantasy. So
Probably.
yeah,
There
Yeah.
is also, an elephant in the room when you rewatch the map of the world. An elephant in the room that it may well
you
be
mean
necessary to.
you mean
Yeah, I
the
mean the
shape,
fact that is
the fact that it's
the central
shaped
dome,
like yeah, I think
and I think I get where the author wants to go with it,
yeah, yeah.
like about
I
resentment
mean
and about projection of fantasies.
yeah, I mean you know what the center dome is supposed to represent. I'm
I
sure.
mean, there is even a forest on the north of the central dome. I don't think I'm seeing things here.
Oh
Yeah,
no, this is too cryptic
Empathy.
for me. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
my question
maybe.
is what that like little
I,
monkey is doing up in the top corner, sort of peeking over the horizon. I
that's
wonder what this means. What could this mean?
yeah, that's the author's like like how the authors draw themselves into the manga sometimes
Yes.
to talk and to talk directly um to the audience, but
Interesting.
he's also, but they also use that as a plushie which the heroine carries around, and yeah,
Mm.
I think I guess yeah, there's no need to
It's
be
like as a manga dio,
yeah,
because they have the father.
and
It's just like as a manga dio.
do they have? I haven't seen as a manga though. Do they have?
Oh, you're missing out. It's
Mm.
great. It's great.
Um,
But they have this like little yellow cat alien that two of the like cast member of the like main characters think is the father of a Chio, who's this like younger student. I don't know. You kind of it sounds bizarre because it is as a manga dio borders on the experimental and is a must watch for any true for any true men of culture.
yeah, and just to get it out of the way while we are on the topic, I think there's one setting which I guess it's basically the heroine's hymen. Let's get it out of the way.
Mm.
Um, so so at first when the protagonist first gets into the I was always going to say the Wild, but no, it's the Unreal. Um, it's like he logs into, like, he spends all of his life savings um on a game and a PC which can run the game and so on and so forth. And I guess
Yes.
to quickly explain how he got because he, this is sort of kind of like he has sort of a relationship with Ichigo, which is similar to Sato and Yamazaki from NHK. So the protagonist is not an otaku at first,
Mm.
but then is introduced into that kind of stuff from by another character, a friend. But anyway, when he first
Well,
yeah
I was gonna say you forgot the best part to why he won in the first place. The fact that he said, "Oh, like he meets a few of his friends at I guess the izakaya or Japanese bar, and he goes, I'm fired from my job. Oh, I have. It doesn't really matter. I have a new girlfriend. Really? What?" And he introduces him to the virtual reality, and that pretty much convinces him to buy the virtual machine. Whereas before, what he would used to do is every single time he would have savings, he would go to the brothel.
yeah, so the soap land, that's what they call it, but yeah. um and yeah, Ichigo, the friend, basically has a harem. I think there was a picture at the start in the game, and he meets some of these characters. Yeah, Takuro meets some of these characters. Yeah. So so he buys a game, and then so he goes to buy a game, but the only copy that which he can afford is one which he finds um you know underneath. He comes across a game which he can actually afford, and it turns out that a game called Tsukiko. And when he puts on the VR headset and stuff, he gets on into an island which is actually disconnected from what we saw earlier in the world map. um and on this island, do you want to say what happens on the island, Fahrenheit?
Oh no, you're making the mistake of getting me to recollect plot points, which always end well. Um, yeah, so it doesn't. I mean, with these games, you kind of know what to expect, sort of. It's a like Gal game, and so he goes in expecting to maybe get some action, but quickly he realizes that this like it's a very realistic simulation, right? So you have Sukiko. I mean, I'm not going to describe their first meeting. We all know what happens in their first meeting. What he catches her doing. Let's move
Yeah,
on from that.
yeah,
Um, but um, he sort of spends a while kind of chasing her around, trying to figure out how on earth to even talk to her, let alone kind of do anything romantic. I mean, another thing to kind of, I mean, the thing that gets constantly brought up visually is the age gap, or kind of how grotesque he is, how grotesque Takaro is um, in kind of seeking out oh god, Tsukiko. Um, but you kind of, I mean, it's funny because you kind of in the kind of grossness of it all, you kind of do feel for Takaro in a way. It makes him feel like a very like a real person. And I think there's a good reason for it because where Takaro is kind of a cipher for the author himself, and the author kind of talks about this later in the kind of bonus sections. But to kind of conclude the meeting, you know, um, like Sukiko is a good-hearted person fundamentally. So even though he kind of fumbles the first meeting a little bit, um, she kind of she basically tells him, she basically thanks him for being born, right? Because oh god, I'm fucking this up so much. But during the meeting, Takaro basically starts despairing because he can't really get anywhere with her, and he says it's his birthday today, and only his parents are celebrating with him, and so Tsukiko then kind of tells him happy birthday, and the little bit of like human contact he gets from Tsukiko kind of starts off their relationship into the next chapter. God help me.
yeah. And I guess another thing which is noteworthy is that she bites him because, like, he when he first enters, like he assumes that she would just like him because
Yeah.
he bought her basically, but you know she bites him and it actually hurts him, and that's not supposed to happen. It's in these virtual reality games. So that is a sign that the first sign that there's something special about Tsukiko.
Yeah, I mean, the meeting lasts quite a while. I think it lasts from chapter 1 to chapter 3. It's around chapter 3 where she actually bites him, which isn't meant to happen, right? And I'm sure we'll get to that when we keep going.
Yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I've got kind of thoughts on this like dynamic. I mean, it because on the one hand, like they're still gonna be they're still manga characters, right? So so Kiko is still a manga character, but you could say she's maybe slightly more realistic. She's not this like soulless like computer program. She's actually kind of more she's more self-aware. But she also still kind of acts like a manga character at the same time. There isn't really getting around that. But
Yeah,
yeah, she ends up biting you on the hands, and that kind of ends their disastrous first meeting.
she's
Where
yeah,
yeah, sorry, go on.
she's too innocent to be real, basically.
Mm.
Yeah. So so the island worlds, they say that it takes about 500 gigabytes. That sounds like a very little. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah.
500. Well, it's 500. I think they said 500 gigabytes of RAM.
Is it? Okay.
Ooh.
Yeah. It's like, but I did the price calculation, and I figured out how much he paid for the VR stuff, plus the computer, plus the game, and it was just shy of £3,000, which is pretty good. Like all things considered, he didn't like.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it was basically all of his savings, and
Yeah.
it was also
Um,
his 30th birthday, and basically he was kind of sad that well he basically spent all of his savings only to get get rejected even in the virtual world which he bought so that he wouldn't get rejected. So yeah. So another thing about the virtual reality, the Unreal, is that NPCs can die, and they can be brought back, but their memories cannot be brought back. NPCs can't hurt humans, and they can't see images of the real world, nor hear any references to the systems of the game. So basically, for them, um, the Unreal is the real world, but obviously these things don't apply to Tsukiko for reasons which we'll discuss later on. Originally, so the way that this thing even came about was that there was a dating sim called Oasis, which I think that's the name for virtual reality in Ready Player One. I think the Oasis, right?
yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, I think so.
yeah,
I remember.
so there was a dating sim called Oasis where like people, so it was like um, sort of like a visual novel, and people would you would chat with a girl, but an anime girl, I guess. But actually, the person on the other end would be a man, or something like that. So basically, they replaced that um that
She's
person.
also not exactly a normal AI, but she is based on someone's DNA somehow.
Yeah,
She
yeah,
has a
somehow,
persona father that we get to meet.
and yeah,
It is all things, to be honest, of a rogue experimental AI that is going to fuck up humanity, to be honest. Like, if I wanted to make sure humanity gets extinct, I would make something like that. But that's neither here nor there.
yeah. I mean,
Pretty much.
creator is also kind of a character too, so we'll talk about him too,
Yeah, yeah.
his motivations.
It's
So
very fun, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. So um, so there was a program called Moon, which
Mm.
all of uh, all of the girls, those fake virtual girls, are based on. You know, and by the way, Tsukiko means moon child. So yeah, uh, yeah, player killing is allowed, um, and presumably players can do it in safe areas too. If the GMs don't catch them, we don't actually see any GMs doing anything. There are player clans which can do quote unquote war with each other. The players are basically psychotic, all the ones that we saw, and only the Gull game players seem to care about the NPCs at all. Uh, yeah. So
I mean, girls being for girlfriends being completely, inactive is basically the fantasy that you can live going on Reddit and watching silly girls. It's that kind of lobotomy you get. Basically, in this case, they're being made purposely for the job, but
yeah, and
the fact that they're
by
all
the
based on the rogue AI, that should,
yeah, and
should,
by the way, the like this none of this stuff is free. Like the NPCs are not free,
yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah, so that
yeah,
also comes up as a topic.
of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. So yeah, so um, I guess other important locations which come up are Shamoji Park, which is in Nostalgia. That's where there's a virtual brothel. Yeah, and there's an attack on it as well. Um, yeah, Fantasy, as you said, is where the RPG players are. Uh, I can't remember what the field of attachment was, but apparently it's an unarmed zone. I think that might be where like there are abandoned towns because players used to be able to make their own towns, but not all of them succeeded. So there are basically abandoned structures as well in the virtual world. Yeah, there it is, abandoned town. So
It was Minecraft creative mode, but it was discontinued
yeah,
because,
basically, yeah,
more or less.
yeah, yeah. There's an island called Gunkan Island, which has a high school on it, but it's not a like it's basically there's a whole arc where like the protagonist goes with the heroine because the heroine decides that she wants to go to school, and he also agrees to go there when he finds out that it's it's like a like the male players who go there, they just sleep throughout the lessons, and then go have sets with their virtual girlfriends during the break. Yeah, so there's the Furthest Tower with there's a further in here somewhere. um
Melchior.
yeah. um and I guess that's a picture of Takuro's house in the virtual game, like his actual house. um he lives with his parents. I think in a flat above a shop. The shop used to belong to their parents, but now they're too old to run it, basically. um yeah, and by the way, the protagonist is not a neat. Yeah, and we finally got to the slide uh about the protagonist, Sakamoto Takuro. So he's 30 years old at the start of the manga. Yeah, it starts, with him, having a midlife crisis, I guess. He went to trade school, but now works at something totally irrelevant to his work now, which is at a printing place.
It's his life, to be honest.
And yeah, he empties his savings account, as we said.
Mhm.
His only happiness in his life is going to Soapland, which is the Japanese term for, you know what? Um, he's
I
too,
already said it.
yeah, yeah. So, as I said, he's not really an otaku per se at the start. Um, he's very indecisive. Um, and he somehow gets into a love triangle by the end, which I didn't see.
Emphasis on somehow.
Yeah, it somehow turns into a love triangle, and that's basically what I think fucks him up, because his indecisiveness. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, because so here on the slides, I'm saying that I don't think so. He's obviously not heroic, even though at times like it seems like he's willing to sacrifice his life for the heroine and so on. So that's kind of heroic
Mhm.
sometimes, but on the other hand, he won't commit yeah, to anyone or to anything. So That's basically what I see as his main flaw.
Well, as usual, this is what the protagonist says, but in a way, we can see he sells himself a bit short because, after all, he's the one breadwinner of the family, and he is taking care of both his father and his mother. Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't do much, but at least they eat and they survive. His father is on the deathbed, or he's on a deathbed, basically. So
yeah, yeah,
if he wasn't able to do at least that, they would freaking starve. So
yeah. He does the
he's
minimum. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people survive on his job as a printer.
Yeah.
It's still something.
So,
They wanna-
what did you think about Takuro, Albania Man?
I mean, he is, you know, I don't particularly like him that much, but he is kind of a realistic portrayal of someone who works in a dead end job and has no deep dreams or anything. He's just meandering on.
Yeah, yeah. He doesn't have any ambition or anything, and he just thinks that if he had a girlfriend, then he would see the world in a different way. And basically, he says that he needs someone in order to be able to do stuff, to get himself better. He can't really do stuff for himself, get better for himself, essentially. Um, yeah. What about you, Fahrenheit? Any other thoughts on Nakuro?
Yeah, I think everything has been said, but yeah, I mean, I agree with Albanian Man. You don't have to like him, but ultimately you do kind of wish the best for him, for him to sort of find a way, to kind of to sort of find a better path in life,
Yeah,
and maybe to kind of redeem some of his character flaws. But he's kind of he doesn't he does get very close, but doesn't quite manage it, unfortunately. I've got some theories of different scenarios where he maybe would have, but we'll get to that, I think, when we get to the biggest flaw in this manga later.
yeah. I think many of the reviewers seem to say that the place that he got things wrong was that he chose virtual reality over reality. But I don't think they the story kind of made it clear. Like it was
Mm.
more like he couldn't choose
Yeah,
one. Basically, he couldn't choose either, like being like Ichigo and
yeah,
just
it was his
going full.
indecisiveness. Yeah.
It remains
Also,
a blink.
I mean, in his defense, the events did kind of line up perfectly to sort of put him in a very poor position. He would have lost someone either way.
Yeah,
So in a sense, you can't blame him, but also he screwed up just enough, just badly enough to basically alienate um, these two, this woman and this girl who both kind of cared about him in their own sort of individual ways, let's say.
yeah, yeah. Um, and the reason why I think that the mangaka is not necessarily making a moral judgment, like saying, because most of the people the reviews I saw were like saying, the people who were trying to defend this manga were saying that, well, like it shows the dark side of escapism, and so on and so forth. But I'm not really sure about that because, as I said, the author um, of this manga also made the cover to Denpa Otoko, um, which is sort of like a anti anti-romantic manifesto about otakus being better off, falling in love with
Well,
fictional characters rather than real women. So I don't think,
in,
yeah,
in the PowerPoint, he gets called the perfect anti-projection character, but here comes the doubt if perhaps the author, if he is actually a self-insert in some strange small way, let us say.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we can't. We are not telepaths, so
yeah, I mean, there's some. I mean, about being a self-insert of the author. I mean, the author does say that he used to work at a printer, and like the place of
yeah.
work of the
Oh yeah, right.
main character is based on um his workplace. The home of the character is based on his place, and um yeah, he also said that just like uh that the protagonist, he used to cry alone in the printing factory on Valentine's Day, while pretending
That's
to be asleep.
those are
So
harsh feels.
yeah, so yeah, but like on the other hand, like it's not. I think there are people who would like to be in Takuro's condition, like and basically who would be okay with who would choose virtual reality basically without
Mhm.
much trouble. He's not very intelligent, but I don't know. Part of it is played for laughs. Like if you remember the whole
It's
yeah,
more like he's he's sort of a goof.
yeah,
Let's put this this way.
like
Regardless of
Yeah.
IQ, he's sort of
yeah,
a goof.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like he has this plan of winning over the heroine again by um kidnapping her as his in virtual reality as his with his real appearance, then um, beating himself um, up while showing his fake self again. I don't. Yeah, it's funny in the manga. I'm not good at retelling the story, but
And
yeah,
in literal media land, in which tropes from fantasy role playing and erotic role playing and anime exist, kidnapping your future wife is basically a confession of love and perfectly normal. I would say.
yeah, yeah. Basically, he
Of
kidnaps.
the days of
Yeah,
the Bronze Age,
yeah, yeah.
but
He kidnaps her and then pretends to save her. That's what I was trying to say. And somehow she falls for it, even though obviously this comes to bite him back in the end. I mean, he's not really a good person. Like for example, he for his um uh, cock shit, I guess. he he um he lies to a coworker to get them to lend him um 100,000 yen, saying that it's for liposuction, so that he would stop being fat and so on. Yeah, but
I
there are
don't think
yeah,
anyone in this manga is really a good person, to be honest. But
yeah,
they're all
yeah, and
lovable failures and so on and so forth. So
and
we do.
I think uh, I yeah, and the author spends a lot of effort showing his face in gross and funny ways. As I've made a small collage of his faces.
Well,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
say
if you want, Takero's personality summarized in one frame, this is it.
Yeah,
This is the full spectrum of Takero.
well, you call it the funny, I call it the horrifying.
yeah. I mean, I did include horror as a possible genre for this. Um, yeah,
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 it's like it's like a dark comedy, you could
yeah,
say, a dark sci-fi comedy, which is also a drama and tragedy as well, and
And again,
also
depending
a
on
slice
how
of
much,
life.
mm, and again, depending on how much he is a projection of the author, that maybe just be self-deprecating humor. Like, look, I look like shit, so that's something like that.
yeah. It's something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I do quite like the sort of the full send attitude. It's like I'm gonna make this character do something truly vile, but only is he gonna go out and buy a cocksheath. He's going to make his co-worker lend him money, pretend to get liposuction to pay for it for him. I mean, this is truly another level.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, but the only thing that he's thinking about is like trying to win over this virtual girl.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and taking her on dates and whatnot, and when the
Yeah,
fireworks
I mean,
goes off, and the heroine is like, "Is this even real? It's so beautiful." Like, he's like,
you
"Yeah,
would, yeah,
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 this is real. We'll make it real or something."
yeah, it's
Yeah,
true. I mean, you're kind of asking, what's motivating him. Obviously, there's always this aspect of of a desire and his kind of lust for this girl, but at some point he does actually start falling in love with her, right? Where he stops seeing her as this like computer program. Um, so you kind of have to ask, is lying to your coworker about liposurgery for love morally correct, or is it,
yeah,
you know, or is it not?
yeah.
This manga lets us ask the real questions.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
part of him like not being an otaku like at first is that like someone who's into these dating sims is that to make it more plausible that he would think that the computer program is a real person. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so um, yeah, it's
but I mean, it's also pretty much. I mean, it's pretty much confirmed to him at that point that Tsukiko is more than just a program. She's this highly advanced AI who's pretty much set like sentience. So she may as well be
yeah, but
real,
I don't
and
think he like
but
I don't think he's intelligent enough even to understand any of that for the most part. But yeah,
it's where the like 80 IQ meets the 120 IQ.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So yeah, I have a panel where like when he first sees Ichigo and and he sees how like this is a complete and total escape from reality, and yet there was a part of him that was jealous, seeing his smile. Um, yeah. So this is the moment where everything the story basically
Yeah.
starts. Which so the character which he says that he might be jealous of is Reinhard or Ichigo. Yeah. So um, he was an Unreal Online resident since the early beta tests. He was once a prominent figure, having several titles such as member of the Estonia Council. So Estonia, I think, is the oldest fantasy city in the game,
Mm.
and the guild master of the Girl Game Guild, but has retired from these positions in late 2014 and is now a reclusive. Has lived through two Unreal World Wars, and is very of the leader of the Ninth Empire, which we'll talk about. Currently living with 5 women. So obviously, I haven't included a page of his home, but it's a dump. Whereas in the game, he lives in a castle, basically. And the reason why he's wary of um, I think the reason why he doesn't want to get involved in the events um of the game, like the wars and stuff like that, is because as you see that there's another panel here, where he talks about the most cruel thing about this world is that, for him at least, that the girls, basically, if they die, then they lose their memories, and
Yeah.
he's basically too attached to them. Um, So his real identity is that of Dai Saku Echigo, and he's basically a midget. He was fired from his job at a bread factory when a small fire broke out. And he said he really should have burned that place down. He's unemployed and living off of his savings somehow. Um, he's considering the idea that real life is a nightmare from which he will soon awake. He's 30 years old. So, and he wishes to die in the real world and be reborn in the unreal, just like Kanzaki. So we'll talk about Kanzaki, but basically Kanzaki is the creator of the game world. I mean, this is also not original idea, I guess. The idea of the creator, somehow living still in the game. It's there in Ready Player One as well, I think, sort of. Um, um, so he's the one who got Tahuro, the protagonist, into VR, and he even lent him his bodysuit when Tahuro,
Yeah.
when Tahuro begged for it, basically for his first time with the with the girl. He was like, no, I'm not going to give it to you, like, because this is like part of my skin or something. But at the end, he just leaves it in front of his room or something in his house, um,
Mhm.
with a
And
note.
he never gets it
He
back.
never gets it back.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
never does.
So we'll talk about the ending later, but basically he sacrifices himself. His brain gets fried basically because basically there's a big conflict at the end, which is kind of rushed the ending, and the the other big quote unquote big players in the game come to try to convince him, because I don't know, he used to be a very good player and whatnot, to come back for this big battle, and he goes, but he ends up basically dying in real life, as well as in the game, and yeah,
Yeah, he gets some mind hacked by CIA glowers.
yeah, basically,
And
who were trying to, yeah, we'll talk about the ending, but yeah, um, any the other, I kind of liked Echigo, to be honest. Among the characters, in this manga, he was one of the least dislikable, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think of him, Fahrenheit?
um, I guess Echigo, it's difficult to really dislike him. He what you see is what you're getting. To put it as nicely as possible.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, and
Long ago decided not to give a fuck anymore. No.
Yeah, exactly. He died for what he loved. And that's more than most people can say.
and yeah, I think the gag around him, the comedic gag around him is that, like, when people see him online, the people who know him in real life see him like his avatar basically looks so good looking that it looks creepy, and both the protagonist and the another person who sees him in the game and also in
Yes.
real life tells him that actually
Yeah,
he maybe
yeah.
looks
It's
bit
kind of funny, like when Miss Nagao um goes is sort of meets him briefly. She does comment that it's like, why does this why does this Reinhardt guy look so like good? He's like creepy. I prefer the like midgets over this avatar. Um,
yeah, and he gets all pissed about it, but then he can't stand up to women, so to Nagao anyway, so he just shuts up and takes it anyway. And I guess, I guess what's funny is that, like, in the game, like, he always has this, like, self-controlled expression, um cool expression, but I don't know. Yeah, I think there's a lot of funny gags, like, for example, when they're riding horses in the game, like they're riding the sofas. uh
yeah, they are, and like Takura like falls off the sofa and has to be like helped back on.
Yeah,
And then there's like another one where there's a couple having sex in the kind of opposite apartments, and yeah.
yeah. I mean, like
Anyway,
they're having like this discussion about like going and saving this virtual girl who is stuck in a brothel because Takuro basically abandoned him for the first time. And we will talk about
yeah,
that probably in the next slide. Yeah, but yeah, basically Ichigo is based. Simple as that. Why does this slide stop working every time I change it? So next we'll talk about Tsukiko. So Tsukiko means Moonchild. She's the legendary software called Moon. She was created from Kanzaki's DNA somehow. Kanzaki is the creator of the game. She's Noah 2.0, raised by Kanzaki rather than trained by the net. So basically, she's the first AI which Kanzaki created. He trained it basically on all the data on the internet, and it became this kind of god like monstrous being.
yeah. I
Yeah,
posted some images in the discussion section. Yeah, I loved the design for this like first AI that gets developed. You know, the one that can interface with every node in on the internet. It can hear everything. You know, and it turns into this, you know, thing with like, eyes, ears, feet. I don't know. It was cool. It was a
yeah,
cool
I'm
design.
yeah,
taking Cognito Hazard, start from SCP, like purify it, destroy
Yeah, exactly.
it, and also waifu. But okay.
Yeah.
yeah. So
But yeah, like Tsukiko is the one that was developed after this horrific monstrosity.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
yes, sorry, go on.
Oh, no, you go on. I've talked for a long enough.
Yeah, but somehow, and this isn't, it's kind of unclear or just not explained. But this first AI is basically integrated within Tsukiko, that that later gives Tsukiko these powers to network with
Yeah.
with everything which is
Yeah.
connected to the internet, pretty much.
Basically, the reason why she has the same powers is that Tsukiko is actually. So basically, what happens is that yeah, we'll talk about what happens with the god like being later on when we talk about Kanzaki. But regarding Tsukiko, basically the creator Kanzaki decides to cut out um, the god like being Noah basically that's what it's called from the network and isolate it on hard drive, basically turn off the power. And to restart development, he uses an earlier version of Noah before it got trained on everything. And but she still has the same powers as Noah. She just doesn't know it. And
Ah, okay,
yeah,
yeah, makes sense.
and basically rather than training it um, on all the data on the internet, Kanzaki decides to do it the old-fashioned way, and basically he goes around with a camera on his head, showing her, teaching her what is a fruit, what is
Yeah,
teaching her
a
basic.
pretty wholesome moment.
Yeah, from this manga. Anyway, um,
He raised her like a child, and to be honest, it's probably the most effective and most intelligent strategy of AI construction, like AI training, probably. If only because it's the strategy that we have been using since 1 million years. So yeah, we have been, obviously, we have messed up several times over the course of history, as many people proved. But I suppose is the best strategy we know of.
yeah,
If you
Yeah,
want to actually raise an AI to personhood, let us say. If you want to create an idol that will destroy humanity, then of course link it to 4chan and enjoy.
Pretty
You know?
much.
yeah.
yeah,
There is yeah, I was I don't. This might actually no. I'll talk about it later. Sorry, go on.
No, it's fine if you want to say something.
No. Well, I was going to talk about there is at least a fragment of the first AI or kind of a like visage of it
Yeah.
in Tsukiko, which is kind of which resembles this sort of guard dog.
Yeah.
Um,
We'll talk about it with
which
about Kanzaki. Yeah.
yeah, which kind of very literally is like guarding her like virginity.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
but yeah, well, and it communicates with Kanzaki, which sort of gets sort of the next section, right?
so there's some Super Saiyan shit going on with her hair. Basically, at first, as you can see in the screenshot, which is basically the how do you call it, packaging for the game. Yeah, her hair is white, and another thing that's never explained is how the hell did Tsukiko's AI end up on this random CD. Yeah. So anyway, this is basically the CD case which Takuro picks up, and the only one which he can afford. I think it's 138,000 yen, whereas the other ones were like 600,000. Anyway, her hair is white color, and it turns black color after Kanzaki's death.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the creator's death. And come to think of it, the one with Kanzaki is actually the first quote unquote love triangle, not this. Yeah. So the protagonist, despite being a loser, somehow gets himself into two different love triangles. So yeah. What else was there? And then her hair color turns white again when Takuro when she finds Takuro cheating on her, when she's basically because she can see through cameras basically everywhere, and she sees Takuro cheating on her with a real girl. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Yeah.
Filthy 3D girl.
Yeah. We will talk about how he basically, but basically, this is just my opinion. I think that now only fell in love with Takuro because because she saw that Tsukiko already liked him. But we'll talk about that later. Um, so her personality is innocent but selfish sometimes. Um, so basically, she threatens to destroy the world if she can't get Takuro back, and is fine with or maybe I'll keep that stuff for the ending later. Yeah, but basically she decides she's also easily manipulated. That's another thing about her.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, she's kind of like a real girl, or like a girl her age, where she catches I guess you could say Takuro is seduced by another girl at school. Of course, where Takuro instantly folds, and when she catches him kind of with this other girl, she gets very jealous there as well. Um, but then she comes around again very quickly. A couple of scenes later, so
Yeah.
obviously she doesn't really she's not one to hold a grudge, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I would call her a silly girl.
yeah.
And whoever knows what I mean, he knows what I
Hmm.
mean.
So I saw some people complaining about how they didn't they thought that they only liked Tsukiko, but then they also disliked her because she decided to kill Takuro and make a clone of him, um, to her preference within the game. I don't.
Well,
Yeah, I didn't really dislike her for that. because
I mean, isn't
yeah,
that exactly the mind process that caused her own birth? Like
yeah,
to
yeah,
the
exactly.
legend.
Yeah.
To the legend. I mean,
Yeah.
And it does
isn't
fit
she
with her.
just doing the same thing that caused her own birth? So we really have no ground to criticize her at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
plus, that fits in with her character. That's how she is. She
And
goes, well, if it doesn't fit my way, might as well change it.
but
Yeah.
but on the other hand, like she only did it because the father was trying to, she convinced him of it. And when the father suggested destroying the whole world with nukes, she didn't do it because she didn't think that was
Yeah.
right. Because yeah, so it's not like she doesn't have a, like she's not that, that innocent monster kind of thing, you know.
She's also not that silly, you know.
Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, yeah, she's just like she's like has a low mental age, but also at the same time she's a child of the unreal. So she's like her like morals are going to be skewed that way, right?
Yeah.
Anyway,
And I think she sort of still loves him and kind of forgives him at the end anyway. So
yeah, she
yeah.
does.
Um. Okay. Next we have Kanzaki Yoshiro, the Yoshiro, the creator of the game, creator of
And we
Noah's
talked
Ark.
a fair bit about him over the course of the conversation, to be honest.
So he lives as a guard NPC to a virtual brother. Uh, and he's he's um he's not a real, well, he's a virtual, the one that we see. We don't really see well, we actually do see some of the real, but real Kanzaki, but for the most part what we see in the game, what the protagonist meets in the game, is actually just a virtual clone of the creator. uh so yeah, she's Moon's father, basically Tsukiko's father. He dropped out of school in fifth grade after being called a Christmas tree because of his pen rough. Uh, yeah. In, and by the way, if you haven't noticed, for all the characters, I've included a picture of them in the Unreal and a picture of them how they would look in real life. So um, he um, now that he's or at least the fake, the virtual clone wants to return to the real world as a real person. Um, he's
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Um, I mean, a good way to like think about this, right, is that there's two stories about Kanzaki that are kind of running at the same time. So on the one hand, you have the like mythology, which is told by
Ichigo.
yeah, well, yes, yeah, thank you. Which is told about by Ichigo, where Kanzaki is this great genius who was screwed over by his company. He created this evil AI and was assumed by the AI ultimately. But he did also bring up, but and this is where you get the story of how he brought up Tsukiko by going outside and kind of showing her around and stuff, and maybe he did that actually, in reality, but we're not really sure. It's kind of unclear, but
I think
and this
I
is
think
this is the version, this is the version that a Yo or a Yoshiro believes is his own story because he's wiped his own memory,
yeah,
right? So in his mind, he's no different from how he looks, how he acts. He's kind of this kind of tragic hero who was wronged, but when he seduces Tsukiko in an attempt to get back to reality because he wants this kind of fictional life back. The guard dog, which is this remnant of
no,
this first AI he made, right? Yeah, yeah. Kind of meets him and shows him his true form, which is the lower image we see here, where the events did play out, but they just sort of play out differently, less romantically. Um, you know, instead of being this kind of upstanding guy, he's actually hideous. He's overweight, and he kind of and he's very similar to maybe Ichigo, but worse in a sense, you know. And you could say that maybe Yasukiko wasn't really a creation of and you're still here. I think Fox is, I think we lost Fox. Sorry, but maybe Yasukiko isn't this like this innocent creation. She's more of this kind of figure of like pure desire, you could say. But these things are sort of hinted at, though. It's not really said for sure. So we kind of
no, I think wasn't the backstory of Tsukiko revealed by the doctor, because there's one person who knows the truth about Kanzaki and everything, which is how do you say, his assistant. You know, every mad scientist has to have an assistant.
the doctor.
Yeah, the doctor. I think it was the doctor who revealed about because I don't think did well, maybe you're right. So yeah, but anyway, and by the way, the scene where the guard dog appears, and all that, and he gets his old appearance back. But however, I do think that he did actually help Moon in some way, because Moon is fond of him. Like when he gets his gross appearance back, you know, the one we see below, all the other NPCs find him disgusting, but actually Moon Tsukiko likes him more now that he's gross, because
He's got
the smell.
he's got that man musk.
Yeah, he's got
he's got the man musk.
He's got his her father's smell or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean there is kind of this like weird undertone. It's like
yeah. Yeah, but basically, when he used to be at this brothel, he basically was all of the virtual girls who were there were basically girls, NPCs who were abandoned by their owners, and he was basically defending them, so they all liked him. But then but then when his appearance changed, they couldn't recognize him any longer, except for Tsukiko. And the scene with the guard dog, that's the you know, the quote unquote hymen scene setting, which is basically he tries to he comes across Moon Tsukiko, and the way that he comes across her is that we haven't talked about the first love triangle. So the one between Kanzaki, the protagonist Takeru, I can't remember his name now. And
Takeru,
yeah,
it's fine, yeah.
And
it happens to me all the time.
And and Tsukiko. So basically, Tsukiko tells Takeru that there's someone that she likes, and that's what and when Takeru finally brings finally brings Tsukiko to nostalgia. Basically, she comes across Kanzaki, and Kanzaki saves Tsukiko and Takeru from a bunch of I guess 6-year-olds pretending to be delinquents in the game. Yeah. And
it's gonna be it's gonna be fun talking about the Empire.
And anyway, Tsukiko quickly realizes that there's something special about Kanzaki, even though her memories have been I think they have been locked by Kanzaki. But then the protagonist can't take this anymore when I think Tsukiko says that she really wants to meet Kanzaki. again. So what he does is that so basically the connection between the island at where like they spawned at first and like the overworld, the connection is a train which goes underwater, a train car that goes underwater, and he pushes into the train car, uh, and the train takes to the overworld where uh, which is really stupid, and but because there's nobody to protect her. That's that's the first uncool thing that he did. Yeah, really. Um, I guess the first time he betrayed her, in my opinion, because anything could have happened to it. But then Ichigo convinces him to go and look for her again, like try to win her over when, and then they find out. But anyway, she's taken into the virtual brothel, and Kanzaki tries to realizes what she is and tries to have, and he erases her memory of Takiro and tries to have sets with her so that um oh yeah, we haven't talked about the godlike AI. Um,
Yeah.
Basically the godlike AI, um, what the godlike AI did was basically what Tsukiko tries to do at the end, which is he created a copy of Kanzaki, um, and told the creator that he's no longer needed. Or at least that's one version of the events. Yeah, that's one version of the events. But then it turns out that that AI only did it because not the protagonist, because Kanzaki wanted it, because he basically wanted to uh, escape from reality, and the only way to escape from reality was to create a copy of himself in the game and killing himself in um, in the real world. But obviously the version in the game, um, which is like a prettified version, which like I don't think which has modified, like not even just the appearance like Ichigo, but even like the memories. So it's debatable to what extent it's even the same person anymore. So this Kanzaki doesn't know the real reason, but so that's and he thinks that he was this cool guy in real life as well, and that's why he wants to go back to the real world. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, when he tries
Yeah,
to
but depending on how you interpret those things, there may be up to 4 versions of Zaki around the real world and and the virtual world, if you want. Like, it will be actually the godlike AI. At least I have seen a few passages that sort of suggested that the godlike AI was also a splice of him in a way. But it's left. I think it's left deliberately vague.
I think in this case it's kind of clear that it's more like a lane type of deal, like the internet itself. I think well, with lane it was something that was always there. So maybe in this case it's clearly just they basically show how they create her. Like at first, like she has the brain of a rat or something, and then they feed her all the trash on the internet.
Yeah, I might be just being overthinking it,
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Have we done? Have we talked about Lane? Because I want to bring up the resonant frequency of the Earth, and how Lane is actually the vibrational frequency of the Earth spirits, made manifest within the wired. I want to talk about this.
Yeah.
Well, we did
can-
a previous discussion,
we
but
could do
that kind
another
of
one
fell
though.
apart.
Yeah,
I might have forgotten.
yeah. But anyway, the reason why Kanzaki access to Tsukiko is because he thinks that if he has sets with her, then he'll be able to somehow like undo, like do the opposite, and get back to the real world. Which at the end, I guess they prove that it's possible with Tsukiko herself.
Yeah.
So what else? I guess we have to talk. Kanzaki doesn't survive throughout the whole manga. He dies halfway because of this further character, who leads a player clan called the Ninth Empire, and decides to hunt Kanzaki. Is it exactly clear why he wanted to kill Kanzaki at all? Um,
It's a convoluted plan between plans,
yeah, I mean
that
it's literally a monkey's plan. So
yeah.
yeah,
I guess Kanzaki is the only guy in the whole world who knows what Tsukiko is at that point, and
yeah,
kind of how to access her.
mm,
So like getting rid of him makes sense.
yeah, that makes sense. So and so during this attack on Shamoji Park, where this brother lives, all of the virtual girls there get killed, and they're like until the last moment they're like Kanzaki is going to come and save us, but no. Kanzaki himself gets killed, but before that, basically the protagonist finally arrives to try and save her, and she won't go unless he also saves Kanzaki, and he's too fat and tired. He can't run away. Yeah, and so he carries Kanzaki on his back, and but um, basically um, like a bunch of commandos, whatever, and the military type players from first person shooters come into the fantasy section and kill him. But before he's killed, he basically gives over tell gives Tsukiko over um, to Takero and tells him to protect her, basically. So he does at some level maybe care for her, and he also explains that if he can get
Save
her,
the cheerleader, save the world.
yeah, and he explains that if he is able to make her fall in love with, with himself, then he will have access to all of the Unreal and so on, the powers of the Unreal. So uh, I think what I meant when I said that the mangaka created him to critique those who are in the same position as him, but act as if they are better than him. What I meant there was something like, basically I think that the mangaka had a certain kind of character in mind when creating the creator, um, to criticize him, basically because um, it's something that comes up with the conversation with the guard dog, the Noah, the lesser version of Noah, that basically um, Kanzaki is looking down on the other players in the game, um, but actually he's no better than them, and there are, I guess, a lot of people who are in the same position as the protagonist, but would look down on the protagonist. Um, and I think that there's something going on there like that. I don't want to name names, but I mean, think of Snob, for example. Um,
Yes.
I don't want to name names, but Snob,
yeah, I mean, he even worked at a
we're coming
theater.
for you.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's people like that who are like basically about losers as well, but who will like on 4chan as well. You'll find people like that all the time, who like uh who like if they get any chance to look down on other people, like because it makes them feel better, and it's like it's like almost as if they have forgotten who they really are. And if they could, I imagine I wouldn't be surprised if they'd just erase the memory of who they were.
Isn't it the strategy of control of any caste society? Getting the pariahs to get angry with one another instead of bothering the kshatriyas and so on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's and basically the Noah criticizes him along those lines. Like who are you to do? Yeah, basically just I think he calls him a self-denying loser. Like you're even worse than the people you're looking down on. So yeah, so once he tries to have sex with Tsukiko, he's unable before he can break what. He gets back his old appearance. He entrusted Moon to Takuro during the Kanzaki hunting event. Yeah, it's basically a game event to kill an NPC essentially. So Tsukiko, an NPC who is the creator of the game. So Tsukiko liked him more when he was in his true form than in his unreal disguise. Okay, now we finally get to the Pharaoh, Ehara, and the Ninth Empire. So the Ninth Empire consists of a bunch of I don't know, CS:GO playing 6-year-olds who thinks it's funny to destroy and burn everything, and it's funny to make the stupid gull game players who care uh, about their virtual girlfriends to make them cry.
Yeah, I guess you could say like if you take the Ninth Empire seriously, and what I say in this, you could say that the Ninth Empire is basically Ressentiment made manifest, right? In the most explicit way in the whole manga. I mean, there's a big speech section where basically Führer says we've been brought low in the reality. We're losers. We're the bottom of the food chain. Things like this, and so we're going to take revenge on humanity, on the real world by destroying it. And but of course, because this manga is I would say this manga is well written. Lots of realistic elements are included. Like for example, well, the Ninth Empire is full of these like 9-year-olds, as it would be, of course, go um and one of the funnier things about this is of course where Fury himself is literally a monkey. The idea that a monkey can have this power in the unreal and can literally risk a nuclear Armageddon, I just think hilarious in kind of like a dark sense. I don't know, it's kind of I don't. It's like it feels like something like you would um find in what's his name, famous director, directed um
What film?
I trying to I try to remember his name. It's
Well, we can list the film. You probably remember it.
he's the director of of The Shining.
Oh, Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, Kubrick. It's like something you would find in one of his films. I was I was reminded of Doctor Strangelove in an odd way. It's like maybe what if one of the generals in Doctor Strangelove is actually a ape in disguise, and now a nuclear Armageddon is being started, because of all this sort of unreality and all this insanity. It was just great.
Or the guy that is convinced that the thing they're trying to destroy men's bodily fluids is an actual ape.
So yeah, the further it's revealed at the end that it's a 6-year-old, and they reveal it little by little, but um, well, actually, no, all at once, and it's kind of rushed. I think there's a note at the end of the penultimate chapter or so where it says that. So this is also, by the way, this mangaka's first serialization, and we'll talk about that some other works of the creator later on. And for a first manga, I don't think this is that bad, to be honest.
I would say for this manga, this is pretty freaking good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up later, but yeah.
So Ehara is first, his face is first shown, because they are also going for a Guy Fawkes mask thing, where all the 9-year-olds have the same face as the fur. So his face is first shown as a student player at the school, quote unquote school, which Tsukiko and Takero actually attend. And yeah, one of the students is part of the Ninth Empire, and he goes. And by the way, at this school, there's this whole scene where the principal tries to trick the protagonist into buying an NPC, which costs 158,000 yen or whatever, by making duping him. So I think that would be pretty realistic as well, because I think they say that the thing, you can get stuff from real life in the game, but it still costs around 1/10 of what it costs in real life. It's not free. Yeah, so that's an aspect which I liked, because it seemed plausible. So I mean, yeah, I mean, even right now, if you go on stuff like VR chat or whatever, you have to pay in order to get avatars, and so on. So so yeah, he's the leader of the Ninth Empire. He's 6 years old. The Ninth Empire, and led by him, defeated the U.S. military in their military simulations.
Can I say something about that? This is very charming because in 2003, that sounded like probably an actual accomplishment, you know?
Yeah.
Now in 2025, you can see no shit. But okay, let's go on. I'm sorry.
So yeah, and we actually do get to see and by the way, in this, and this was made in 2003, and they got it pretty wrong, because they have Hillary Clinton as the president of the United States, and there's I guess a gag of she's in the Oval Office, and as this crisis unfolds,
Yes.
and Bill Clinton is giving her oral, and yeah, and
Yeah, I mean, it is pretty close though. I mean, in a bizarro alternate reality, it could have been true.
yeah, and we also get to
Yeah.
see I guess the top glories or whatever, trying to work put in a virus to delete Tsukiko and the Ninth Empire.
Yeah, I mean, another thing, another thing this manga predicted were Discord moderators.
Yeah. Who work for the government, I guess. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, exactly. All Discord moderators work for the government.
Dear.
I've told you this.
Except us, of course.
No. I've been leaking.
Well, I work for the Japanese
It's all
government,
over.
but at the end of the day,
Oh, do you?
the Japanese are, part of the global whatever. Anyway, so a bunch. So the Ninth Empire are a bunch of losers who want to use the Unreal. Well, he basically says that it's to rule and get back at the real world, but actually he just wants to destroy the world. But
Yeah.
but
I
he's
mean, funnily enough, the other justification he gives is to what is it? Was to destroy. Sorry, was to end a US imperialism.
yes,
Of course, this is of course this is just another cover. He just wants to see the world burn.
yeah, and obviously like he's just trying to convince a bunch of 9-year-olds so who have no life so and are online, so it's not going to be that hard. So
It's also BS remembering is also a fucking chimp. I don't know if you have any experiences with chimps, but anything will set them off. And genocide on unparalleled previous scale, I think it's run of the course on with a chimp with console of the virtual world. Then
Yeah,
again, I don't know.
that's why the meme going monkey is a thing.
Yeah.
yeah, so his plan is
Yeah.
basically Hara's plan is basically capture Tsukiko, which he does, and the reason why he's able to capture so easily is because the protagonist is at this time has been, you know, seduced by a real life woman, and
Yes, yeah.
Three-
One of my favorite characters actually, in the manga,
yeah, there's
is
a
this
slide
woman.
about there's a slide about her. We'll get to her, and
Yeah, there should be.
and Tsukiko is waiting for Takero to come back, like in just wearing an apron because like he likes it for some reason, and
I
yeah he
wonder
get
why.
yeah and and then he gets kidnapped by a bunch of people who look like Ehara. They come wearing gas masks, but when they remove the masks, they all look like him. And obviously they want to do the thing with her, but it turns out that none of like the fur
Yeah, they don't possess the equipment
yes.
to take advantage
Yeah,
of Tsukiko in that moment. Yes.
yeah. The fur and the reason why he doesn't want her to get raped and whatnot is because he wants he tells her to clone like he basically reveals like what's going on like about the real world existing and so on, and that Takuro is cheating on her, and he convinces her to clone Takuro to turn him into his into her rather perfect boyfriend, and but there's nothing that he can do to actually make her do it. So yeah, so it was never a good plan to begin with, to be honest. But what do you
He's a
expect from a
monkey.
monkey? It almost worked. So yeah,
Well, I think Fahrenheit forgot the best part when it comes to getting seduced by the real life woman. The woman he got seduced is, I believe, is either his boss or coworker.
I think well she's basically in sales and at the same company. She works in the office while
Yeah.
he's at the factory, and they used to go to school together
Yeah.
as well, I think. So
Oh, not only
Yeah,
that,
child trans.
yeah, I mean childhood friends always lose. There's nothing that's a low, and unless they try to like on purpose subvert it. I mean, in which case if they do it on purpose, it doesn't count. So yeah, kill Takuro and humanity with nukes. The unreal world would probably die, but it doesn't matter to him, which is revealed soon, and then I guess return to Monkey. So yeah,
I mean, it makes sense that a monkey that has lived all his life inside a cage to be experimented on and he has given the outlet to live in the virtual world and so on and so forth will be resentful of humans to remain
I don't
on
think.
the
Yeah,
title
yeah,
of the show, or the manga.
yeah. I
Then
mean,
again,
yeah.
it also makes sense that they will fucking poison him when they realize and be
No,
done with it.
but the thing is that they don't poison him because they realize that he was the one pulling the
Yeah,
strings.
I don't remember exactly how it ended, to be honest about it.
Did you read the manga, by the way, thoughts?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
you
did.
did. Okay,
But I also have a
I should.
job,
I would have asked more questions from you.
But,
God damn it. Yeah. Well.
I tried to set myself whenever it was funny. That's how I work. That's how I do my
Yeah.
best work.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Uh,
okay.
yeah, I'm glad that yeah, I've yeah, I guess you wouldn't yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that when the recording is over. So, um he doesn't have a mother or parents,
Mm.
obviously because he was brought up in this cage. In this cage, he says to the doctor who asks him like, "Who the hell are you? Like, where's your mother? If you're 6 years old." And he like while talking to the doctor there, he just gets poisoned, or like they gave him food and it's poisoned. And the reason why they poisoned him is because apparently people I thought it was like some really badly tacked on social commentary at the very end, but basically people which came out of nowhere, but it was kind of funny still. People basically, so the reason why they put him down is because um, they put the monkey down the further down is because uh, people now prefer to look at animals in virtual reality rather than going to the zoo. So there's nobody to pay for the zoo.
Yeah, I forgot that part because it was awesomely decided. Like when my brain decided that they were to put him down because they realized it was the future. Yeah, now
and it was so retarded I could and the face that he the human face
he's
that
even in a zoo. He's a science monkey. They're doing experiment on him. They keep in a zoo with the other monkeys.
I think
That's a really
they just
experiment.
gave him a PC for no reason with access to the Unreal and um but people I guess I don't know he's angry that people don't come to the zoo anymore
Okay.
and
Okay. I can imagine like it being resentful of humans, like again being kept in a cage and so on and so forth.
yeah
And he says, "You know what? I'm going to kill all
yeah
you bastards."
and
That makes sense, but
yeah, and the face that he takes in the game is the face of one of the zookeepers, who's like
yeah, that makes sense.
at the end he's like crying. The zookeeper is crying uh, about having to put down the monkey by poisoning it. Yeah, but I don't know. It's supposed to be sad, but it's also funny. Which is, I guess, a lot of stuff
Very.
about this is like that. Um, okay, the next slide about the author Kengo Hanazawa, and I guess there's a slight personal connection that I have with him, which I'll talk about. So he did the cover to Honda Toru's The Empower Turko, which I'll talk about in the next slide. His birthday is on the January 5th, 1974. He's from Aomori, just like Nagao. By the way,
Mhm.
I put the slides in the wrong order. I should have put the order after Nagao. But
Why don't we talk about Nagao first then?
let me see if I can find the slide. Oh yeah. So yeah, she says that at first she tells the protagonist that it would be psychological impossible for her to be with him. But we see that she changes her mind, and I have a theory about why she changes her mind. Um, if I can find the bloody slide. Uh,
Yeah, I mean,
oh yeah, I found it. Yeah.
I have difficulty saying words, but yeah, she says it would be physiologically impossible for me to be with you, which is kind of beyond psychology
Oh yeah,
and psychology.
exactly.
It's
Yeah, it's about this
like
body basically,
physically,
physically possible.
like her like immune system shuts down
Uh,
with any intimacy.
yeah, yeah,
But I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
mhm.
In my notes, I have a Nagao written down, or I had it initially written down as a embittered saleswoman. Um, when you first see her, she's apologizing to the kind of printing factory where Pepero works, telling them, oh yeah, like everyone's gonna have to work for the night now to redo these prints because there was some leaking. Um, so yeah, she's not really like she may be working, she may have a job in the office and she may be a saleswoman, but she's also kind of caught in this like not great situation. Let's say where she could has to be the mediator between quality control and the factory itself, which is never nice.
So
But yeah,
yeah, I think
sorry, go on.
yeah, I mean did I interrupt you? Or?
No.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point you made because it's like on the other hand, it's not like the real world is a nice place anyway. Like it, at least as it's depicted here, like her work sucks, the world sucks. So it sucks for
Well,
everyone
I mean,
basically. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it is still a pretty, optimistic vision of the future compared to what we actually got.
Yes.
Because
It's
we
Yeah.
are
true.
still
This these
the
were the
guy was,
early
in
Yeah.
fact,
2000s, so there was still hope.
he's
In
not
this
the, no, because they
in this
have to,
reality, we have flip phones still. Imagine.
yeah, imagine.
Yeah. Um. So
It went even worse, perhaps. You
and
know what?
and there were no furries in virtual reality somehow for some reason. So
Yeah.
They did exist in 2003.
they did. Yeah. I mean,
Mm.
I mean
They
in the
did.
virtual whatever.
The Stone Age.
So Nagao, she's the childhood friend who never wins, but not that anybody won anything. Um. So she went to school with Takuro. They show like a photo of her back in school. Now she works in the sales department for the printing company Takuro works at.
Mm-hmm.
She falls in love with Takuro. So a lot of people are complaining about low IQ people, but complaining about how they couldn't fathom how Nagao would ever fall in love with um, the protagonist. How that was also unrealistic. Um, like just like the Tsukiko falling in love with the protagonist, apparently. But
IQ people, you said it yourself.
yes, um, there is a reason for that. So so she falls in love with Takuro after Tsukiko says that she hates Takeru for falling. I always get Takeru confused with Takeru for some reason. So she falls in love with. So Nagao falls in love with Takuro after Tsukiko tells her that she hates. Yeah, so where in the plot they were, but that's not the reason. So did she only fall in love with Takuro out of jealousy to Tsukiko? To be
I
the one
think
stealing a man this time, because
yeah, I think there's a strong argument for that. I think definitely initially because it's also because another thing that happens is she kind of loses to this other woman as well. There's this other guy that she's falling around with, and then she sees him kind of walking out of this love hotel, I think it is, with this other woman. So she's kind of she doesn't really get a lot of luck in real life. So another thing that she maybe sees in like Takuro is, well, at least I can get this guy,
exactly,
the
yeah,
this yeah.
yeah. So she has a complex about not being charming to men. Like for example, like when some client basically, tells her that she wants the printing done again, and she has to go to the factory and beg the factory workers to basically work overnight. The bosses they are like, you are a woman, why don't you try to be more charming? And she later on complains like that it's not that easy to be charming. Yeah,
Yeah.
and she complains it about not like how I said it, more like kicking and screaming. So
A bit more indignant, but
yeah.
I can't really blame her.
So she's constantly losing men to other women. So she went to Tahura partly because surely no other woman would want him. Um, so she's from Aomori, just like the creator, and Aomori is the countryside. And I've seen in some other anime as well, like like characters will say that they're from Aomori or their parents are from Aomori, but they never go there. Like in Steins Gate, for example, the um the
Where is the
redhead,
samurai?
yeah, the redheaded what's her name? Oh, the redheaded, basically the science. Anyway, let's move
Yeah, I
on.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her father is basically from Aomori. So, where was I? She used to have an accent which she had complaints about.
Kirisu.
So, she and the way that she convinces, so basically, she finds out that Takuro cheated him, or rather cheated her out of 100,000 yen um, for the liposuction, rather to use it on the game, and then she goes to Echigo's place to go to log into the Unreal, where she finds Takuro having sex with Tsukiko on top of the school. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. I mean, I also like just this is like an extra thing. I think the fact that she so easily gave him the
Mm.
money is also kind of a sign that she was sympathetic towards him as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
Or maybe, or at the very least, she liked the idea of Takaro being more
like
attractive or
I
getting like fitter.
I kind of get the
She
feeling.
was willing to pay towards
I
that,
mean,
which I think is quite telling.
so I kind of get the feeling that the people who were criticizing this pairing for being unrealistic, think about it, they're still reading this manga, right? So that means that they're at least at some level not normal.
Yeah.
So I kind of think that they're like Kanzaki basically. They kind of want to look down on the protagonist a lot because they don't want to see any similarities with him. Like they want to pretend to be above him. So
I don't know.
they will say
Like
yeah.
yeah, I think people come into manga, things like this with certain expectations, right? And when they're not really met, because this manga does do things differently, right? Like the characterization is quite unique. So people when they see this don't really quite know what to make of it,
I
right? And it can
yeah
kind of,
I think most of the people
I
who
don't,
yeah I think most of the people who read this probably came from uh, his more popular manga I Am Hero,
yeah,
where the
yeah.
protagonist is slightly less pathetic.
You know,
So
plus like my the gal theory is that she's kind of this, she's kind of full of contradictions in a sense. She gets with Takaro initially because she's not in love with him. She doesn't have much attachment to him, therefore she can't really get burnt so hard if she does get rejected. But she ultimately leaves Takaro because she does care about him. The fact that he chose unreality in her eyes instead of her does genuinely hurt her. Therefore, this is why she kind of leaves him in the end.
I
Um,
guess I guess what I was trying to say is that they can't let the protagonist get a girlfriend, be able to get a girlfriend, because that then that wouldn't explain why they wouldn't themselves be able to get a girlfriend. But maybe I'm reading too much into it. But yeah. Um,
I
so
think you've been reading too much Nietzsche.
yeah, yeah. That's Ressentiment. So maybe I'm reading too much into this work as well.
That
So
would be fit to the point of the very title, yeah, because that at some point, the point of the Sentiment is that Nietzsche doesn't talk about is that at some point you freaking grew up out of it, if you are healthy. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah,
Or you can have a victim complex for the rest of your life and fester on the internet, like.
yeah.
But you know,
So um, so um. So the way that she gets him Takuro to snap out, I think, is when she asks him like if he's going to just play this game for the next 10, 20 years. Basically, it's it's the same scene as in Welcome to the NHK, where like Sato he imagines himself at 30 years old, like fat with gout, totally totally balding and all that, except that the protagonist is already there. So, but I mean, um, well, maybe could also just be that the protagonist is just too indecisive. The kindest way to describe her would be feisty, I guess. She
Sure.
she decides to become Tsukiko's surrogate mother in exchange.
Mm.
Yeah, I think the motives for her deciding to become Tsukiko's surrogate mother are kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of the more bizarre plot details. Sorry, plot elements. I don't really understand why she agreed. You know, at one minute, Tsukiko is kind of her like romantic competition, and the next minute she wants to give birth to this girl. It's there's something very bizarre
I
going on
think
here.
I think
My theory is that an ending needed to be figured out, and it was quite rushed. So this is kind of what happens as a result. But maybe there's a deeper
I have
meaning.
another theory, which because it sort of makes sense if you consider like the conversation that they had, like at the very end, as Tsukiko is, disappearing from the CIA virus or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, and the theory is this: at the end, before she disappears, Tsukiko tells Nagao that you know sh- sh- um, that she would be able to beat Nagao anyway. Um, and and to that Nagao replies, then in that case, why don't you come to the real world and try? Um, so and and then Nagao at the very end says that she would agree. She she basically just asking whether she wants to live. Where she asks Tsukiko whether she wants to live, and Tsukiko replies yes. And then at the very end, um, Nagao adds a condition, which is that she will bring her up in such a way that she would never fall in love with a guy like um, Takuro, and so basically
yeah,
she would win the bet that she would win the bet that she wouldn't that um, Tsukiko wouldn't be able to you know woo Takuro in the real world.
Mhm.
Yeah. And also I guess, but it's also I guess maybe to get back a little bit at Takuro as well. I thought um, by basically bringing her up in a way that she wouldn't be attracted to a guy like Takuro. But I think the main thing is the bet, because like she has this complex about like other women being able to steal guys from her. Um, yeah, and maybe she wanted to be a mother. That's another probability. And she couldn't get a even if she couldn't get a man. Um, what do you think of that theory, Fahrenheit?
I think it's fine.
Yeah,
I just think it's kind of um I don't know, a little bit like insane, but I guess in like the logic of the manga itself, like in the story itself, it does make sense.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
she's kind of insane, even if it's played for like for comedy, like because she decides to kill. So when the doctor tells her like Tsukiko is going to kill Sakuro to have so that the only real version is in the Unreal. And Nagao says, "Well, in that case, I'm going to kill him himself," and finds a knife from somewhere to try to
yeah.
kill him. Yeah, so she's already kind of crazy there. And what did you guys think of the ending?
Mm, a bit rushed.
Yeah,
A
I
bit
will agree.
rushed.
Yeah, I mean everything you wrote on this slides, I pretty much agree with. I think I mean, he even wrote about that in like in like the ending section where where he hinted like, look, okay, my agent kind of came to me and told me to finish this up quickly. So yeah, the story suddenly progressed at this like breakneck pace. Side characters like Ichigo just sort of died. I think Ichigo did have like a funny death, you could say, or he did have his kind of
Funny,
moment of
heroic. Yeah, his
heroic.
moment.
Yeah, yeah. It was like, but he. I think his character. If the manga had a longer run time, sorry, a longer run, I think Ichigo would have been kept alive for a bit longer, and also the like final battle would have been, I think, more epic
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is sort of yeah. He was pressured to kind of end it, and so this is kind of the best he could do. I mean, as an ending, it wasn't terrible, but I think the story did negatively affect the story. Unfortunately.
I agree.
Well, I also say another thing. I don't like the whole fact that the AI girl is now materialized into reality. Personally, I would like to have the idea where, the virtual world kind of dies down, and he's kind of forced to face the fact that this man is, the main character is a loser, and he has to better himself. But matter of personal taste.
Yeah, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the story is more ambiguous than that. Again, and the reason I think of that is because of that Dempautuko connection. And I guess the complaint which Albania Man had, a lot of other people had, the fact that the protagonist doesn't go through character development because I guess they wanted him to become a normie or something. But what do you think, Thoughts? Was there any character development? Does it matter? What do you think?
I think that by deciding to focus on, the title itself says it, Resentment, he basically had to cut himself off from the possibility of character development, or have an ending in which our protagonist decides basically, right, I'm done with this crap, and goes to live and gets the girl and goes to live a real life, basically.
But
Which apparently wasn't what he was interested in having as a moral of the story, because he
yeah,
also wrote a whole manifesto later
yeah.
about 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 red pills on the sexual hierarchy scale. So
I guess the question
that is
is,
object.
yeah.
Yeah, so
The question is this. Like he makes a choice to try to like. He's obviously not a hero, so he's going to fail. But he makes a choice to try to save
yeah.
Tsukiko. Like, is do you guys think that that was the wrong thing? That he did the wrong thing by trying to go and save her, abandoning Maria Nagao?
Like on a metaphysical sense, yes, but in practice, he would probably have done that. He was probably determined at that point with the choices he had made up to that point that he will go on to do that.
Why do you think he was wrong to try to save Tsukiko?
Well, simple. Let's be honest. It's an AI. It's not a human being. It may pretend to have a quote unquote soul, but doesn't have a soul.
Yeah,
You can really attach an AI to an actual person. They will fundamentally always be different.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if okay, right. Let's think of this like the trolley problem. to Takaro, he could do nothing, and Tsukiko dies, right? Or he could do something, and Tsukiko could live, right? I think really this is just a thinly veiled trolley problem, where where Takaro sacrifices his romantic relationship with the Maria to basically save this thing that to him is very much a girl,
Yeah.
you know. It's just a reality in his head. I mean, obviously, it's just an AI, right? But to him, it's something he cares deeply about, you know. So I don't think he was wrong. I just think he was incredibly imprudent with how he went about doing so. Um, you know, one thing I want to add, you know, his character, you know, the ending for his character was very depressing. You know, he didn't really make any progress, but also he was always a normie. He never, you know, he never wasn't a normie, and that's maybe the most
Yeah.
depressing detail of all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because like he never fully chose the unreal. He was always flip flopping, and I think that like he would have continued flip flopping even afterwards. Honestly,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, maybe you can go back to. Is there anything else? So the ending was obviously rushed. It's a time skip, which is always a bad idea. The
Oh
final
yeah,
battle was also rushed. It's a
just on this section, I do agree with the 8 out of 10. This is one of those few 8 out of 10s that I cannot really recommend to anyone.
yeah, yeah.
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 I think you need to like be pretty high level to, you know, be able to be
Yeah,
recommended this.
I would say high tolerance.
Like, if you want to like get someone to stop reading manga, whatever, and like they're asking like for their first manga or something, you can recommend this.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
There
unless
we
they're
go.
Japanese, of course. In which case, I guess they. um, so, uh, I liked it because it's ambitious, like it's epic, and I think that's what a manga should be like. Like even if you go back to the old Osamu Tezuka ones, like he always tries to make something big, like a movie, like a film. So that's I mean,
Yeah, yeah. I think there is something to be said for simplicity. I mean, but if you know, if you're making a work of art, you know, you have your own kind of manga run, you know, like why not, you know, why not just go like balls out, you know, completely buy into your premise, you know, and just see how far the it takes you, you know, like
yeah, there's no
and
restraint
I
here.
you
There's
know,
no restraint here.
exactly, you know,
Um, yeah, and it had all these things going on at the same time, which I liked. Even though it didn't, it kind of, at the ending didn't hold up. So that's my taste anyway. So I like it when it's epic. Like Gunbuster or something like that. So
absolutely,
and I also like stories which are trying to get multiple genres like
Oh yeah.
together to exist at the same time. I know you you hate recreators, but that's why I like that story as well.
I mean,
Um,
yeah, I don't know. For me, Recreators had a lot of potential. I like the idea, but it was executed terribly.
I find with, well, getting back to recreators, I find, to be honest, the anime itself to be very mediocre in my opinion.
okay, so um, yeah, so I liked how that the whole overworld thing, the all Unreal thing, having all of both fantasy, um, and the normal world, how like it would like it was like a gradient. But we
Mhm.
didn't really see a lot of it though because again it's too short. Um, so would you wish the Unreal to be real? Any of you guys?
I mean, technically it
Absolutely
already
not.
exists. Technically it already exists.
Yeah, but I hate this timeline.
As do I.
Was the internet a mistake?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah,
Nah,
Yeah.
I'm joking. I
I'm
wouldn't
sorry,
have
guys.
done
It's been good.
this.
yeah. Let's all log out. I guess now. Yeah.
All right, I'm
The
just putting on the server.
the last
It's been
podcast.
good.
Okay.
Yeah, last one.
So we can go back to the slide about the author. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
he did the cover to Toru Denpa's Toru, not Toru Denpa, Honda Toru's Denpa Otoko. He was born in the mid 70s. Ressentiment was released on my list says on my list it says 2003. I've seen also on Wikipedia it says 2004. I don't know which it is. So Takio, or rather Takuro. I keep getting the name wrong even in the slides. He's based on himself. Ressentiment was his first serialized manga. I thought it was more. It was better than his later manga. He won the Topic Award of the 2005 Sense of Gender Awards for Ressentiment, and he also won some awards for I Am Hero, which is not surprising. That one is actually more popular than this. But about this, I kind of found it interesting that he would win an award for basically it's some kind of feminist thing about gender, which they give awards for fantasy and science fiction works, and apparently it was the best which in that year which explored and deepened the concept of gender.
Maybe it was a case that they had to give it to someone.
Yeah, I don't know. And
Yeah, I was like, I was reading this. I was like, what's this about? I don't like, I don't remember reading anything in like Resentments that was like
Yeah.
a queer theory or any of that stuff.
I
No,
guess
like
it's the whole
gender literature.
maybe it's the
Is
whole fact. Maybe it's the fact
yeah. Sorry, no, you go.
maybe it's the fact that the AI rejected the character initially. Just said, why are you touching me? Get out of me, you creep."
Okay, so yeah, and there's some other stuff which I found out about them. Apparently, one of the people who founded it is best known as the author of Evangelion as the Immaculate Virgin. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe because I don't. Maybe it's different in Japan, and maybe it was different in 2003. But I can't imagine this coming out now and it winning some kind of feminist award. At least not here in the West. I
I'm
don't think so.
surprised it won anything in 2003.
Yeah,
It's such a like bizarre detail.
yeah. So, uh, so Kengo Hanazawa's most popular work is I Am Hero. It's about a zombie apocalypse. The artwork is beautiful. It I think it was released one volume at a time. Which is part of the reason why I didn't get to read the ending, because like you have to wait until a whole volume is released. And also like the story had gotten so convoluted, by I think it was volume 8 or whatever, that like I didn't see what the point. Maybe if I read the whole thing, but apparently people were dissatisfied with the ending, the people who read it. But then again, people were dissatisfied with this story as well, so can you really trust people, you know um and
You can't catch a break.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've been
Justice for Hanazawa.
I've been reading uh, The Fountainhead. Well, listen to the audiobook, and I guess the one thing which I do like about Rand is the idea that you should like basically the protagonist, Rock.
Mhm.
He never asks other people opinions about his buildings. Like he has his own
Yeah.
opinion, and I do like that. Even though my opinions about buildings are different from Rogue's or Rand's. So yeah. Anyway, back to I Am Hero. I guess I do have a little bit of a soft spot for it because it features my hometown, I guess, of Lucca in Italy as one of the settings, and it's
Mhm.
like the zombies all combined into this like giant monster thing, um, and with arms, and um, it gathers around certain locations, and one of them is Lucca. Um, and yeah, they show basically. I guess I was kind of excited to see my hometown in the manga. the medieval worlds, and all that. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
Lucca is an incredible city.
yeah. So, um, and I Am Hero is less otakuish than Ressentiment. I think it's because it comes, and it comes. It's still cynical, of course, but it comes more from. Um, I felt it came more from the perspective of a manga creator than um a otaku enthusiast. Like because here, I don't feel like the creator was like fundamentally cynical about the manga creating process and whatnot.
Not fundamentally, but
No, or like about otaku culture and whatnot. Whereas there, like, um, it's more like those stories where like there's a zombie apocalypse and that's almost a good thing because life feels exciting again, rather than being a mangaka,
Mhm.
which it sucks, and like there's like people sleeping with each other to get advantage and whatnot. So yeah, so that's the author. Do you think he looks the part, having read Ressentiment? Um,
I don't know. He looks kind of average for
Yeah,
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know.
I think he was kind of like playing it up a bit, like
yeah.
with with the protagonist being like him, you know.
He's making a
Yeah,
bit
yeah.
of self-deprecating humor, I think. Like, it's always effective sometimes.
S-
If you know what he looks like and you imagine it.
can I come back in a second? I drank a whole bottle of water
Yeah.
and Nisha calls.
Yeah, I know. Oh yeah, I should mention our sponsor. Oh god, what are we
Playing
sponsored by?
Shadow Legends. Who's the
Yes.
Oh yes, exactly. Yeah, yes. If you subscribe to Ray Shadow Legends, you'll get 200 rubies free and a character as well. Isn't that exciting?
a wife?
You,
We are giving you a wife. I know it's completely ironic given given the subject of this video, but we are giving you a wife.
we are giving you Raid Shadow Legend waifu. All you have to do is use our referral codes Die SOS Brigade when you log in, and you will receive your free waifu. Yes, I know she does look like Ritsuko, but it's for the
Nobody look like it's
Ritsuko. Well, I wouldn't have taken a deal if she didn't.
yeah,
It's very
of
important
course.
to me. It's very the aesthetic of the anyway.
Uh,
I have like a
Giving
massive
you a
like thick
skin,
duct tape
giving you a skin
on
so
the Ritsuko and her hidden beauty, or maybe her squandered beauty. But I will spare everyone of my
yeah, I'm back and I feel much lighter. I should have done it earlier so that maybe I wouldn't have rushed it. And anyway, I should have told you. Even though I'm using a presentation, you guys are free to interrupt me at any moment to make a point. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So if that wasn't obvious, so
well,
which slide are we
I
on?
try
Let's.
to be polite about it.
We're on the 16.
So Dempa about I guess there's a short
Yeah,
one about the
Dempa.
protocol, and this thing keeps on malfunctioning. This, this is why I didn't add pictures last time. So Dempa protocol. It's sort of an anti-romantic manifesto by Toru Honda. It's about quote-unquote love capitalism. The idea behind the book is essentially that everything necessary to be successful as in love as a man costs money and is gate kept behind money. Good clothes, a good car, a good house, a good job, and even a good personality can be quote unquote obtained by paying for etiquette training, counseling, mental health help, and um, and so that what Toru Honda was saying is that um, essentially men should just abandon the race to the bottom, that is society, to just lie down and rot, laying next to the opened galge bots cases containing their virtual girlfriends. Is that grim or funny, or would you fancy that? Well, you decide. And the cover to uh, the Empower Choco is, as you can probably recognize, it's our man Ichigo with his harem, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a connection.
He died how he lived.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I love the I love the idea of paying for like etiquette training to like pick up a girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, didn't even Chris Chan say something along those lines that like people should get training or something? But
Hey, look, if the I don't follow Chris Chan news too closely,
yeah,
but didn't he
yeah,
finally catch a fish in the Great Blue Ocean?
yeah,
Maybe
Himself, he didn't actually do the deed with that girl. It was an hypothetical, like he does sometimes, in which he
Oh,
says, "Wouldn't it be beautiful if I molested this girl?" You know
yeah. I mean,
how he
I mean,
usually talks.
yeah, Chris Chan, I guess, is I don't know. He kind of looks like the creator of the AI a bit. So
that's insulting to the creator of the AI. Yeah.
um, and maybe he's a bit more like the AI as well, given that he was, I guess, trained on the internet. Um, yeah.
Uh,
So, um, yeah. So that's basically the reason why I didn't think, like many people thought who read this, that this was like an anti-escapist thing. That's why, because why would he then do the book cover for the Empower Trico? And probably I think they are friends as well, the authors. So from at least from what I've heard from Paz, but nobody knows what goes on in Japan. So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Well, thank you for this like depressing thought experiment. I mean, sure, like into like I don't know like how deep you want to go into like critiquing this, intellectually, but I mean, um, I think it's a mistake oftentimes to like label something as like capitalism when, especially when it's a resource that's going to be finite, like regardless of what model you're living under,
I
like
do agree. I do agree. Yeah,
but
like I read an article and he was like, um,
Mhm.
you know, an interview with Honda Toru, which was translated into English. You can find it on froggun.com. And he was like, well, actually, this started in the 70s. Before that, it wasn't like this. Like, most people could just get married, and people were not that materialistic somehow. Um, yeah, I'm not sure.
Arguable, but to a point, yeah. Like the genetic studies show that 80% of women over the course of history did reproduce, and
Yeah,
that
that's men did.
40%
Yeah,
of men
yeah.
over the course of history reproduce.
But
This is, no,
I do wonder
this is the
though,
game.
like how much is it because of a few, like, certain points in history, or like all throughout it?
Mhm.
Yeah. Um. Yeah.
To a point, I wrote it because even in the Stone Age, you had to be able to freaking hunt, or nobody was going to,
Yeah.
have your kids.
Well,
Yeah.
in that case, I guess he could say, well, it was always like that. So what's wrong if we like with the virtual thing and you do the
Yeah,
yeah.
you know. You could say that obviously the trends that we have today extremized that because you used to at least you went to a hunting expedition, you weren't a very good hunter, and a boar freaking murdered you when you were 13 about or just about, and that was life, and that didn't last very long on your point of view. Like you shoot your shoot, and a boar freaking destroyed you. So it happens.
Yeah,
Today, you have to contend to survive to 70 years old without, it's a lot
yeah.
worse on
So
some levels.
so you might as
Yeah.
well you might as well start playing Galge. This guy has sort of
Stop grinding.
sad backstory as well, which he goes on about in his interview. Like basically, I think his mother kind of was very sexist towards men, basically. Um, but anyway,
He
let's
has a bit of fatherless behavior.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, but anyway, like I don't think he's a bad guy though. Like he what he wants is basically people who are suicidal rather than because he was suicidal and but then he claims that because of anime and stuff, um, he was able to survive because of that. And so, like if you are in a position, what he's saying is that if you are in a position like he was, like like don't kill yourself. I'm fine now. You will be fine too somehow. Um, so um, yeah. So the next slide, it stopped working again. So an Honda Toru quote from the Moe Manifesto. Um, so because I think this is like the elephant in the room, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
why might the
There's there's
yes?
several elements.
Mm,
So why might the character it's the white elephant in the room, not the blue one or the red one. Yeah. So why might the characters in Ressentiment be so young? Um, this is a possible explanation other than the obvious, of course. If you read in his in his interview in the Moe Manifesto, here's what Honotoro says when asked why Moe characters tend to be so young. Because that makes them vulnerable, which inspires us to protect and nurture them. The character needs support, love, or care, even if she's strong and independent. If she's not at all vulnerable, then she can live on her own. It would be hard to approach such a perfect being. Being vulnerable means that you need others, and these characters can't survive without support. So, so that's a
I
quote.
have nothing wrong to say. I have nothing. I have nothing against it. I have nothing to say about that. He's perfectly right. I think this is the core of why we like more characters. Basically, like,
yeah, I
it went to the
mean,
very point.
yeah. I mean, this can also just be applied to any protagonist. Like, how
Yeah.
do you make the protagonist relatable? Well, you give them ties to other people. Maybe give them a family. What do their friends mean to them? And then
Yeah.
you
Puts it
highlight
right.
their vulnerabilities. Their I mean,
So,
it's just kind of like the human thing to do.
um, so,
Yeah.
so I got this comment from I was able to find this quote rather from again that interview which I mentioned. I went into the comments and like basically the author is a feminist and also a translator. So localization. Anyway, but they did a good job in their fan translation of the Oreimo, not Oreimo, Oregairu um, novels. But anyway, and then they went on to work for Anime News Network. They are also the author of that article which we talked about once, which claims that um, isekai came from people writing fan fiction of Zero no Tsukaima. But that's another story. Anyway, in the comments, they were arguing about it being sexist, and I guess at this point, I still cared about like not being sexist. Um, so I was trying to argue why not. That basically that what Honda Toru is not necessarily what he's saying is sexist. So this is what the response I received. This quote from the Moe Manifesto. I think I've read the interview as well, so it's there. But I haven't read the whole Moe Manifesto. Anyway, so this is a comment from Frog-kun. So as much about Toru, so as much as he criticizes modern capitalism for enforcing the expectation for men to provide for women with money and capital, he also clearly believes that women ought to be protected by men, and that women who defy this convention have been tainted by reality. So
Mhm.
I think the thing about this quote is that it's specifically, regarding, like obviously any character needs to be somewhat vulnerable, or otherwise you get, Ayn Rand heroes, which I don't know, they're kind of unintentionally funny sometimes to me. Because yeah, like you know, like their responses are always so short, and the villains tend to be more interesting because there's something wrong with them. Actually, they're not totally perfect. Not that the heroes in Ayn Rand's novels are perfect, in my opinion, but rather than perfect, which like he like Toru talks about, like not wanting them to be like perfect beings. But I think the other thing is basically not wanting to. The problem that Froggen had is that basically what this quote means is that Toru doesn't want women to be independent from men, essentially. Um, yeah. So I think, yeah, I think that's probably the reason why. But basically, um, the protagonist is already weak,
Isn't it
right?
kind of isn't it like crazy how the like definition of sexism has kind of changed and where
Yeah.
it's like so slight, like the to the point where wanting to produce a fictional like woman who is a certain way is now sexist to women. Something it's
Yeah,
very
but
interesting. I
I
don't
mean,
know.
this guy just wanted to like be left alone with his waifu, but now he has to be like condemned for some reason.
Yeah, like now your waifu has to. I don't
She
know.
has to be just like real women. Otherwise, uh, yeah, or some. I don't even think that they want them to be real women anyway. But something, perfect or independent or whatever you want to call it, which is not actually
Yeah, I also love the phrase the biggest moe apologist in academia. This is if only you knew how bad things were.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I think I've come across this Galbraith guy. I think he's the guy who wrote the Moy Manifesto, and he probably had had to whine a bit about how like this is sexist, but whatever.
Yeah, I
Anyway,
think if you're like making a like academic journal, like you're writing an academic book, then you have to pay lip service to some extent.
yeah, I don't think it's lip service though. I think these people do believe that that to be the case.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
But it's like they still like anime, but like it's a kind of self-denying kind of thing going on there. Um,
yeah,
so I guess the so it's sort of fucked up in a way because it's like so the protagonist is so weak in a way that he need like to be able to fall in love. He needs someone who is like a child. Um,
yeah,
Otherwise he would feel attacked like all the time. Um, and so it's like I think this also explains like all these weird incestuous kind of relationship that you see all the time. Like because here, for example, you have the um, you have sort of like a father-daughter like thing going on between the
Yeah, between Kanzaki and Tsukiko. Yeah,
And at the end, you have the same thing with um, the protagonist Takero and against Tsukiko at the end. You know when
yeah,
yeah um
yeah. I mean, I think to say it's like it's definitely borderline. That's what I'm gonna say. It's borderline.
yeah yeah. But I'm not going to condemn the mangaka for including it. At least not me. So
No, no, I don't. I don't. I mean, it's kind of sad in a way because I mean, this obviously isn't really like that healthy. I mean, but instead of kind of asking like why so many young men, especially, um, gravitate towards these characters and kind of develop these attachments, instead we just we're gonna have to point fingers. We always have to feel superior. I mean, like a feminism to me has always been kind of just one of these methods to do that. It's like instead of like trying to help these guys, it's like, oh well, like that's sexist. It's
Oh,
well, okay, yeah, maybe, but
yeah
that's not really the point.
yeah I think
well, it's.
yeah go on, sorry.
I was gonna say one thing.
Mhm.
It's kind of like what Michael Perry said. Remember, modernism and the consequences. No, the Enlightenment and its
The
consequences and
Enlightenment
disaster
is
for
useless.
humanity.
Yeah, I mean I think it's quite simply like a situation where like there's no empathy or humanity. Like
Hmm.
they are subhuman evil, and that's basically it. Um, yeah, and I think that like Honda Toru himself, like trying to like connect with this to capitalism, and like he also like wrote like a whole history of philosophy apparently, and he's obviously into Nietzsche as well. And he was like trying to say something like it is because people are dissatisfied that they come up with philosophy, so let's that's why I'm going to be the otaku philosopher and whatnot. But um um you know you know it's because Nietzsche was rejected by some woman, that whatever. Anyway, um but and he thinks it's a good thing, but the thing is, when he says stuff like that, um and even if he tries like to bringing the capitalism talking points and whatnot, uh, the truth is that at most like he's going to get some people like pop culture people care about him, but like actual academics and people who are like that, they are not never going to take him seriously or anything of that sort seriously. So it's what I guess what I'm trying to say is that like trying to bring capitalism into it is a waste, because the people who think that capitalism is a problem, they don't care about this at all. Yeah. Um, about young men or whatever. Uh, yeah. I put in the slide a slide with "Futures Made of Virtual Insanity." That song. It's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Yeah. Uh,
only yeah, a very like kind of specific age demographic will get this.
so yeah. Um, yeah. I like that song. And I thought it was kind of related to this, even it's not related, because
Yeah,
if you look at the lyrics, they're like both apprehensive and hopeful at the same time about
yeah,
the future. And even though I always try to on the side of pessimism, so that if something good happens, I can be pleasantly surprised. Um, I I'm wondering whether oh god, this fucking presentation keeps on glitching. I'm wondering whether maybe we are being a bit. Maybe we are at a point where something might happen, might change. Um, I don't. I mean, I see people. Um, older people than me, like saying that, like when they look at like now from the 2000s, nothing um has changed, or even from 1985. Like you could go back in time right now and to the 1990s, and
I
nobody
would
would look. You wouldn't look out of place. But if you you know, as you would if you were in the 1990s, going back 30 years into the 40s or 50s or something. Um, and but I'm starting to wonder whether the AI and VR stuff might go somewhere. So I don't have a lot of evidence other than a gut feeling. Um, but I guess so. If you look at the history of VR, the recent history, um, we got the Oculus Quest first, uh, which was bought out by Facebook, and then Zuckerberg spent hundreds of billions of dollars, and it went nowhere, and it was shit. Um, and
Yeah,
yeah, and it became like like you said last time, the Nintendo Wii uh, 2.0, basically.
yeah. I mean, like in the past, Nintendo also bought out their own VR headsets, which was a disaster as well. But I mean, yeah, like VR is funny because it's one of those things that keeps coming back again and again. Companies invest massively in it. It sort of fails, and then it comes back, and then the cycle keeps repeating. I think the one big thing that's kind of different is like Steam maybe, or the fact that you have stuff like VR chat, which that has this like organic social element to it that has managed to sort of stick around. It's like one of the big things that have actually stuck around. So there are like some developments, but yeah, like I think it's going to take a lot for VR to go from this like novelty entertainment system to something that like people start taking seriously.
Yeah, because
That's just my impression.
because if even gamers don't take it seriously, then there's no chance of anyone else taking it seriously. That's the thing.
Yeah,
Um, gamers take seriously all kinds of things which other people would never take seriously. That's why I'm saying that.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. There are a few rays of sunlight or darkness. I don't know, depending on how you look at it. Um, so, um,
Rays of Darkness.
I don't know. Shadows. I don't know. Um,
I'm thinking like if everyone gets put into like a VR, or if everyone starts living in VR, basically, you know, do you think a like Gnostic sect will rise, a kind of like new Gnostic sect? But like this time they will literally be correct because reality has been like artificially paved over by like machines, and so we need to like rip back anyway. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, so basically what I'm trying to say is that there are a few projects. I mean, Gnosticism never made any sense, so it would never make any sense, no matter what happens, in my opinion. Like I've tried to look into it. The more I look into it, it's like whatever. Um, at that point, just believe that there is no God and only the devil exists. That's simpler. Um, but so so there are a few small projects going on which have caught my attention. So there is this thing called My Robot, um, by My Robot Project on YouTube by the Project Viva guy. So
Mm.
who is the Project Viva guy? So when VR chat was popular, which is not, I don't think it's still around, but anyway, um,
Mm.
there used to be something called the Shinobu Simulator or Project Viva. I don't know if you recall, any of you, but
Sota, yeah.
you do, yeah,
Sota,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So
Remember seeing
it
articles about that.
yeah, it was basically um like it was a VR game, a single
Mhm.
player VR game where like it usually was with Shinobu, where there's only one NPC and a house in Mexico for some reason. Um, I think, and um, basically you could interact with the NPC and it would do some basic stuff like in VR. Now, and but this guy abandoned that project after a while, and but now he has started a new project. And as you can see, like you can still see that he's called in the URL. He's called Shinobu Dev. Shinobu, by the way, is the loli from Bakemonogatari, the vampire.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
vampire girl. And
Yeah.
it's called My Robot Project. Look it up. Pretty good. It's not VR though, but I think VR could be implemented into it. But it's basically you build your own waifu in it. You pretend to build it. You know, you put the limbs together of the robot, and what's different about it than Project Viva is that this time it has AI. So you can talk to it. It can do stuff. So maybe okay. Let's have a look at the other projects. So there's Project Anchored by the Argus VRC team, again on YouTube. If you search for Argus ARGUS VRC, you should be able to find it, or find their channel. I think they're not I'm not sure whether they don't call their channel Project Anchored for obvious reasons. So basically, what Project Anchored is, you know what Anchored is, you guys, right?
Isn't that the place in Sword Art Online?
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah, it's the castle in the sky with 100 levels in Sword Art Online, and they're trying to recreate it in VR. But
yeah, when you mentioned Sword Art Online, I've already lost interest.
yeah. So anyway, yeah, I don't think that Sword Art Online is a good story per se, but it has some good ideas. I think people liked it because of the premise, basically. And I find the premise interesting, even though the story's okay. The romance, whatever. Enough about that.
Yeah, we think about that in many
Yeah.
ways. In the end, it's a flawed implementation of a good idea. When you talk about Sword Art Online, it could have been so much better, but unfortunately it didn't. But at least it had a relatively nice romance,
Yeah.
instead of having you wait for 30 years for the asexual protagonist to ask the girl out in the last chapter. He at least went on with it right away, and everyone was happy about that.
So on VR,
At least I was.
yeah. So on VR chat, you have worlds, right? But the problem with VR chat as a game is that there are no stats or anything. Like you can just talk to people. So I think that's why people don't really play it, because you can just talk to people on Discord. Why would you go on VR chat unless you have some attractions to whatever. But then again, you can also do that on Discord as well. I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
you
So
just have to find the right cinema.
yeah. So Project Aincrad, they're trying to recreate the game, and some of you guys might have caught it on YouTube as well. When they showed the first version of it, where they recreated the event where you can't log out, and the creator basically tells them that they're stuck in the game. But back then there weren't any stats, and now they're implementing stats and more and more stuff. It's pretty good. Check it out. It's called Project Anchor, but that is just on VR chat. So that means it has more accessibility, but on the other hand, there are some limitations as well. But they have finally introduced stats, RPG stuff, basically, which will make it a game.
Yeah.
Come to think of it, they didn't really go into much. The game in Ressentiment, it's a game, right? But sort of made sense, sort of as a game didn't make sense. But Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think like a Ressentiment, they kind of got around it in an interesting way where everyone's computer loads a little bit, like a little chunk of the world, right? So all the computing power is sort of put on people's like clients, and then they've managed to integrate everyone's like clients into a single like mega like database basically that everyone can access. But so like it's like everyone is like running their own like server, and you can combine your server with someone else's when you want to, which I think is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it reminds me a bit of like Urbit.
Yeah. I guess this is the final. You can have your monarchy in VR basically.
Yeah, like
uh, yeah. So
that's such like a niche reference. Oh man.
so yeah. So but unfortunately, I think like the graphics, because it's in VR chat and they're building a game on top of a game. Even though it has a lot of accessibility, the graphics are not up to snuff, but it still looks pretty good. So check it out, and it's actively
Okay.
developed. And next we have Subspace Hunter by Xiu King Games. I think it's a single Chinese guy who is working on an
He's
SEO.
single, right?
Huh? Yes, obviously.
He's he's single, right?
Yes, yes. Um, um, so um, it's again SEO. I'm sorry, Albania man. Um, so, but in this case, like the graphics look a lot nicer, but it's only a single player, and you can either play it in AR, augmented reality. That means like, you know, when you're outside, like if you look up at videos of um virtual SEO in real life or whatnot, that's what you will get to see. And but you can also do it, you know, defeat the boss in the game. And there's cool stuff like, you know, when you switch um the sword, it's just like in the game. The HUD, the hood, whatever you call it, you know, the stats and all show up a lot just like
Yeah,
that.
the hoods.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pretty good. Check it out. Now, so that's the white pill, black pill. Choose whatever pill you want, or both pills. And the truth is that for now, most VR headsets are glorified Android devices.
Basically.
Basically,
Yep.
Google is working on an official, and like the one which Facebook releases, the Meta Quest. They try very hard to pretend that it's not Android, but it is. Google is working on an official Android VR port called Android XR right now, but it might not happen because right now Google might be forced to break up by the DOJ, but then Microsoft, you know, wasn't broken up, so you never know. Um, Valve is also working on something, apparently secretly as usual, on something called the Descartes VR headset, which will probably run on SteamOS. Nobody knows because it's Valve. And then there's Meta, but which has failed. But at the same time, they're still. I think investors still believe in them because Zuckerberg put a lot of money into AI, and I think he's trying to basically, you know, keep the VR afloat as well through the AI hype.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've been getting a lot of ads about a guy celebrating because he's just bought land in the metaverse. And no one else got like land buying uh, advertisements. So obviously they're still keeping it going, but I think the way they're doing it is they're going to tie it to like a form of cryptocurrency
It
to
appears
to like
to me.
try and like get some returns off this like failed project. So so this like fake hype about buying land in the metaverse.
The thing is, I do think that AI maybe does give some hope for VR becoming more plausible. Basically, because of two reasons. First of all, because of better NPC interactions, which more quote unquote realistic NPC interactions, which
Yeah.
would make sense for VR more than for normal games. And
Hmm.
secondly, because it could potentially ease the difficulty of creating new assets for
Oh,
yeah for the games. Because as you see, most of these games which I think are going anywhere, which I've listed here, they are projects by small teams,
hmm.
which means because Zuckerberg, I think he doesn't get. He should have made something like VR chat, or I don't know why he made
Yeah.
Horizons that thing. But at least he funds the hardware. He owns the hardware, so I guess that's his consolation prize. Uh, so
He-
yeah,
yeah.
we're going to say
It
something.
appears to me that the meta and metaverse things are a bit like running out, a bit like Star Citizen, if you remember. The game that is never going to end, basically. The Patreon, the infinite Patreon for this awesome space game that now we can admit they didn't have the technology to make when when the fundraising started, basically. And only now it appears that in a few years, perhaps, they will finally manage to do everything by almost 10 years later, I think, or perhaps more. I don't remember exactly, but in this kind of time frame, I guess Zuckerberg's attempt here is to be doing exactly that, like to develop the technology with the money he gets for
Yeah,
the technology,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, and also like earlier, Fahrenheit said something about how in Ressentiment it's all decentralized like Urbit, but um, honestly, I think if this is going to realistically be done, it's probably like, for example, for it to be financially viable, it's going to be something centralized like the MetaQuest store. So basically, all the games which are played on the MetaQuest, unless you plug the MetaQuest to your PC, they go through the MetaQuest store and they get a cut. It's like the Play Store basically, Play Store model. So hopefully, I guess what they are guessing is that if they get enough developers, then they can develop the hardware through the money that they get from third parties, essentially. But it would still be
Yeah,
centralized
yeah.
there.
I
Um,
guess I guess the last big question, right, is what level of realism are we talking? You know,
Not very high for now, I think.
yeah, yeah. Because after a while, like people are just gonna need better computers to to run this to run this software. You know, maybe
Maybe
you are talking about like 500 gigabyte RAM. CPUs. If you want like perfect realism, that's probably it's we're a bit far away. I mean,
it'll be like RuneScape again, I guess. Except now it's in VR.
like
Yeah.
RuneScape, RuneScape needs so much now. I'm joking. Um, but yeah, I mean, honestly, we've been robbed. I expect a 500 GB CPU in my keyboards at this point. I can't believe we've been robbed of this reality.
Don't worry. I
Um,
think Microsoft will force you to buy that then when Windows 13 comes out, probably.
nah, nah.
So,
They're not. Look, I mean, like, thank God they're not chip manufacturers, but are they? No, they're not. Anyway,
yeah, so basically um, the short of it is that maybe because of AI, what failed back when, you know, the meta the Quest first came out might go somewhere. But we'll see about that. And the last slide, which is not there in your slides, sorry, Fahrenheit, it just says, thank you for being born. because yeah,
Thank you.
that's what Takuro says to Takuro rather says to
Yeah.
Tsukiko
Yeah.
at the end. So, any other thoughts?
I think we've covered everything, right?
Yeah.
pretty much.
Okay, then
Pretty based manga. All right. 8 out of 10.
yeah, and
8 out
Okay.
of 10. I will never read it ever again.
oh god, uh, did,
not
did you
not
read it to the
not
end?
not my proudest fap, but
Yes, I did. And I was just like, oh, this is
Yeah, I
horrendous.
guess our friendship was stronger than I expected, Benjamin. Um, yeah. So yeah, 8 out of 10. It's only for true men of culture. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much. Let's stop the recording.